Hi, 5th grade. Today we're going to be doing Module 2, Lesson 24, and we're going to be dividing decimals today. So we're going to be starting off with some pretty easy division where we're just going to be using our powers of 10 to divide different whole numbers, and then eventually we'll be using decimals and dividing them by powers of 10. So this is probably something that you have seen before, either in Module 1 or earlier on. So let's go ahead and get started, and you should be on this side of your worksheet. We're going to be using some of our place value charts just to jog our memory about how to divide by powers of 10, because that is going to be super useful for this lesson. So we're going to be starting off with 54 divided by 10. I'm going to use my place value chart, and I'm going to write 54 in it. So when I take a look at this number 54, I see that this 4 is in the ones place, and this 5 right here is in the tens. So I have 5 tens and 4 ones. When I divide by 10, I want to make my number smaller. I know whenever I'm dividing, I'm making my number smaller. And when I take a look at the number 10, I see that there's only one 0. So that means I'm only shifting my number over one time in my place value chart because I just want to make it a tenth less. So when I just shift over all of my place values one time, what's going to happen is my 4 ones is going to become 4 tenths, and then my 5 tens is going to become 5 ones. So what I have now is 5 ones with a decimal, and then I have 4 tenths. So the answer to this is just 5 ones, 4 tenths, because 5 ones and 4 tenths is a tenth less than 54. So far, not so bad, and you probably remember this from older lessons. But now we're going to try a slightly different problem. And for this one, we're still going to be using the place value chart. So for this next one, we're going to be thinking about 5 and 4 tenths divided by 10 now. So if I have 5 and 4 tenths divided by 10, that means I have 5 ones with a decimal right here, and then I have 4 tenths. So 5 ones, 4 tenths, decimal in the middle. Now I'm still dividing by 10, so I'm still just shifting my number over one time, and since I'm making it smaller, I'm shifting it to the right on my place value charts. So since I'm only shifting it one time over, this 4 tenths will become 4 hundredths. And then these 5 ones will shift over one time and become 5 tenths. So now what I have is decimal, 5 tenths, 4 hundredths, or I could write that as 54 hundredths. So just because I have that decimal there, it doesn't really trip me up too much because I can still use my place value chart and move my decimals around. My decimal's still staying in that same lane, it's just my number that's shifting around so that the value is changing, not the actual digit itself. Now for the very last problem that we're going to do on this page, we're now taking a look at 54 hundredths divided by 10. And just because this is like all the way into your decimals place, doesn't really make it too much different, because what I have right now is I have this 54 hundredths, and I'm still just shifting it over one time to the right. The only difference is now I'm just going to be working with decimals. There's not going to be any whole numbers in this problem. So I'm still just dividing by 10, so I'm still just moving each of my place values one space to the right. So I have 4 hundredths. I move it one space to the right, so that becomes 4 thousandths. My 5 tenths moves one space to the right, so that my 5 tenths becomes 5 hundredths. And then I remember that I have a decimal all the way over here. Now, I can't just write 0.54 because that would just be the same as 54 hundredths. What I need to do is I need to look at this missing or empty place value, and I need to fill it in with something, my placeholder. So I fill it in with this 0 because there's no other number that should be in there. So my final answer is going to be 0 tenths, 5 hundredths, 4 thousandths, and that gives me an answer of 54 thousandths. And you can even kind of see the pattern in these numbers compared to what they have. And you can also see that they have the same digit. So I still have this 5 and this 4 starting here ending up here. The only difference is the value, or how much it's worth, and that is the part that's changing. Now we're going to switch this up a little bit, and we're going to be trying the problems on the back now. And you might notice that with the problems on the back, we're not just going to be dividing by powers of 10, unfortunately, anymore. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. So I'm going to erase this part up here, and let's take a look at this first problem. We have 54, I'm going to write this down here. We have 54 divided by 90. Now when I look at 54 divided by 90, since I have this 9 right here, I see I can't really use my place value chart anymore, because even if I were to write the number 54 in here, I can't divide by 90. I don't know how many times I need to move my place value chart. So a way that we can help ourselves out with this is we can actually break down this 90 into two different parts that I do know how to divide easily by, so that I don't have to set up a standard algorithm or anything like that. I can do this all in my head or mental math. So what's going to happen is I'm still going to be dividing 54 divided by, except I'm breaking this 90 into two different parts. And what I mean by this is I'm going to be breaking it apart by the amount of tens it has, and then just by that number up in front that's in the tens place. So what I see is that I have 9 in my tens place. That number, it's in the tens place. So I'm going to put that number right there. So now, right now, I have 54 divided by 9. So I just brought down that 9 that's in the tens place. I just brought it down. And then I think about what power of 10 do I have here. And when I think about what power of 10 I have right here is I just kind of look at the amount of zeros I have. So I only have 1 0, and I think about, well, what power of 10 has only 1 0? Well, the power of 10 that only has 1 0 is just the number 10. So I know this looks a little weird, but I'm going to show you how this is actually going to help us out a lot, because now I broke this problem down into a problem I really do know how to solve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a look at this part right here. And just like how I underlined in your problem, I just underlined this 54 divided by 9 part first. So I'm not going to solve the whole problem together right now yet. I'm just going to solve it step by step. So we should know what 54 divided by 9 is. Or remember, if you don't know your division facts too well, you could also just think about this as multiplication. 9 times what is 54? Well, I know that 54 divided by 9 is 6. But now I still have this part left over. So now I have 6 divided by 10. And when I see this number 6 divided by 10, this is now a problem I know how to solve. So what I can do is I can go back to my place value chart, and instead of having this 54 here like I did before, now all I have left is 6 ones. And instead of dividing by 90, which I didn't know how to do with my place value chart, I now have 6 divided by 10, and just like the problems we did on the front of our notes, this is a problem I can solve with my place value chart. There's only 1 0 here, so that means I'm only shifting over 1 time. And since I'm dividing, I know I'm shifting to the right. So this 6 ones right here is going to shift 1 time to the right and become 6 tenths. And then I just need to rewrite this number. And I can even fill in this 0 right here if I want to, and that gives me 0.6 or 6 tenths as my final answer. So that is how we solve this problem. So when you're taking a look at this, what you're going to be doing is 54 divided by 90. We take that 90 and we break it down into 2 parts. So I just bring down that number that's in the tens place, and I think about the power of 10 that goes along with that 90. Then I do 54 divided by 9, which is 6, and that's what I fill in here in this little empty space, is that 6. And then I do 6 divided by 10, and then I write down that final answer. So now we're going to take a look at another problem, and this next problem you're going to see is very, very similar to the problem that we just completed. Think about those first problems that we did, and how we had the same digits, it's just the value that changes. And that's exactly what's going to happen here, is that this problem looks very similar to what we just solved. I still have these same digits, 5 and 4, but the value, or how much they are worth, has been changed, which is also going to change the value of our answer. But guess what? Our answer is still going to have a 6 somewhere in it. It's just the value is going to be different. So if you don't get 6 as your answer for this, then there's something wrong. But if you do get 6 and some sort of place value, then you're on the right track. So let's take a look at this. Again, I can't do 5 4/10 divided by 90 on my place value chart, so I need to split up this 90. So I'm going to rewrite my problem as 5 4/10 divided by, remember I just take down this number that's in the tens place, so I have a 9 in my tens place, so I just bring down that 9, and then I think about what power of 10 does this number go along with. So if I have 90, well, that means I have 1 0 in the back. So if I have 1 0, what power of 10 has just 1 0? That would be 10. And then I continue solving. So remember, I just like to look at this first part of the problem first. So if I have 5 4/10 divided by 9, you can still think of that as 54 divided by 9. Except, remember way back when we thought about this as 54/10 divided by 9. So 54/10 divided by 9 is still 6, but since I started with 54/10, my answer is going to be 6/10. So I would write that as 0.6. And then I need to divide it by 10 because I still have this part over here left over. Make sure you always do all parts of your problem, because if you don't, then you'll just be left with only part of your answer. So now we have 6/10 divided by 10. And now this is a problem I can do on my place value chart. So I'll write the number 6/10, so 0.6 into my place value chart. Since I just have 1 0 right here, that means I'm only going to be shifting over 1 time to the right in my place value chart. So I will move my 6/10 over 1 time. So 6/10 will become 6/100. These 0 ones I could also move over and they become 0/10. And the reason I did that is because I needed something to fill in this empty place value with. So now my final answer is going to be 6/100, because I have 6 in my hundredths place, so I would call this 6/100. So just to review real fast, we start with number 5 4/10 divided by 90. We split 90 into 9 divided by 10. And then we did 54/10 divided by 9. 54/10 divided by 9 gives me 6/10, and 6/10 divided by 10, we used our place value chart and got 6/100 for our final answer. Now we're going to move on to problem 6, and by now you might actually be starting to see the pattern that we have. Like I said, our answers are always going to have a 6 somewhere in them for this set of problems. It's just a matter of what the value is. You might even know what the answer is for this next one. So for this next problem, we're going to be solving for 54/100 divided by 90. Remember, I'm not going to write this in my place value chart just yet because there is no way for me to do 54/100 divided by 90. I have to break down the problem a little bit before I can use my place value chart. So just like always, I will break down this problem. So I have 54/100 divided by 9, because I just take that number that's in the tens place, I bring it down, and then I divide by 10, because this has 1 0 in it, and since it has 1 0, the power of 10 that has 1 0 is just 10. So now I am solving for just this section right here, and I'm going to be solving for 54/100 divided by 9. Remember, you can still just think of this as 54 divided by 9, it's just the unit that matters, or the value. So if I have 54/100 divided by 9, then that gives me 6, or 6/100, and 6/100 looks like this, 0.06. And then after that, I make sure to bring down this divided by 10 parts. And now I'm left with a problem that I can use my place value chart to help me solve. So I'm going to write 6/100 in my place value chart, so 0.06. And now I need to divide it by 10, so since I'm only dividing by 10, I just move it over 1 time to the right. So 6/100 moves over 1 time to the right and becomes 6 thousandths. 0 tenths will become 0 hundredths. and 0 ones will become 0 tenths, and that gives me a final answer of 6 hundredths, or sorry, 6 thousandths. And as you can see, I still have that 6 somewhere, that 6 digit somewhere in my answer. It's just the value of that 6 digit that is changing, just like how I still have the digits 5 and 4, and then this 9 over here. The only thing that is changing is the value or how much that number actually equals. So fifth grade, when you get to this very last problem, you're going to be doing 54 divided by 900. So when you do this problem, I kind of got you started. You're going to think about what's 54 divided by 9. The answer to that's 54 divided by 9. And then think about what is that divided by 100, and that will give you your final answer. For this problem down here, you're basically doing the exact same thing. It's kind of like you're doing 5 and 4 tenths divided by 9, and then take that answer and divide it by 100. The reason why we're dividing by 100 here is because I have 2 zeros up here. After you finish this problem, please check in with me so I can check your answers, and then after that you'll get started on the problem set. Great job today, and good luck.